Thank you, Mr. President. Senator from the 14th, I appreciate your explanation on Gene Talmadge and what his episode with the Board of Regents. And I have to say, I just read about that, and it was very unusual. And I think Gene Talmadge regretted the day that he took on Regents. But I will say the Board of Regents and the folks down at the Teachers College were right in standing up against a racist governor at the time. I'm probably as frustrated as anybody with this issue, and I'll just have to say the senator from the 52nd is, in my opinion, one of the most righteous men in our caucus and in the Senate. He really is a quality person and a class act, and I think his motivations are right on target with this bill. But we don't all represent the same districts. I represent an area that, frankly, there are a lot of Hispanics there, and frankly, a lot of them there came here illegally, and they jumped the creek to feed their children, as you just put it, Senator from 33rd. But that doesn't make it right that they're here, but they are here, and most of them came in the beginning 40, 50 years ago when we actually needed migrant workers. They came to Florida to pick citrus, and then they would migrate up to Georgia to pick watermelons and onions, and then on to the Carolinas to crop tobacco, and then wind up in the blueberry fields of Michigan, and then they'd move back down the state as the weather changed, and frankly, they were needed. But they were, in the true sense, migrant workers at the time. Because they were such good workers, many farmers began to expand their produce business because they were such good workers. And currently we have a fabulous produce business in Georgia because of them. And many of them had children here. Those children have become citizens and are productive members of society. After 9/11, the population of America got real concerned about immigration and about terrorists and gangs and any number of things that they rightfully had to be concerned about. And so we all got serious about making the laws stiffer. And many states, as a result of that, took on the responsibility of the federal government because, frankly, they wouldn't fix the problem. I don't know of anybody in here or anybody out there that doesn't think that the borders ought to be controlled and that we ought to stop illegals from coming across the border. And we should, and the federal government has not done a good job of that, and so Arizona decided they were going to do it themselves. And then Utah decided they were going to do it themselves, and then we decided, and Alabama decided, and other states have decided that. But it really wasn't our job. It was the federal government's job, and because they didn't do their job, we're doing it. Well, it's the federal government's job to also provide us guest workers. The population doesn't want farmers using illegal labor, so the answer is a guest worker program that is legal. And there's not a person that I know of that doesn't agree that we need a legal guest worker program to gather these crops. But the federal guest worker program is a disaster. And, Senator, I just got through urging Congress to fix that program. Now, do I think they can fix the program? No. I don't think they can fix the program, and frankly, we ought to have the program because we run most of the federal programs anyway. Medicaid, Department of Transportation, education, we do all that. And I think we do a pretty good job and a much better job than the federal government would do. But they are in charge of immigration. And it's frustrating to me because I have farmers that can't get labor. And they're saying this, and you may think this is not important. But if they can't get labor to gather blueberries and onions, then what they do is start growing something that it doesn't take labor to pick, like cotton and corn. Well, where are we going to get blueberries and onions and We're going to get them from countries that absolutely care nothing about what's sprayed on that crop or what they charge you if you don't have it. And you think we're dependence on oil is a problem? Wait till we're dependent on food. Wait till we're dependent on food. And the federal government has, and I've asked our congressmen, and I've asked our U.S. senators, why don't you give this program to us, or can you pass the Harvest Act, or can you pass the Barn Act, that are good fixes to the problem, and when they off to the side, they say, we can't get it passed. Well, because they can't pass good law, we think we have to pass it for them. And consequently, we have difficulties doing that. You know, I'm frustrated that people that are applying for citizenship, that it would take 5 or 6 years or more to be told yes or no. I mean, that is not our problem. That's the federal government's problem, and they're not fixing their problem. The DREAM Act, I actually think if the DREAM Act were modified a little bit, it would help. You know, I've got kids in my schools that are 10 years old, just about the size of my daughter, that they didn't come here on their own. They don't even know, they've never even been or have a memory of where their parents took them from, and yet the federal government tells us we have to educate them through the 12th grade. And then we say, no, you can't go to the university system, but you know, we've allowed you to go through these other 13 years. I don't know how to fix that problem, but it's not, you know, we're trying to fix it here. It's really an immigration problem that the federal government ought to fix, and frankly, they ought to pass some version of the DREAM Act. You know, I'm as frustrated as many of you are. And as a pro tem, I'm really supposed to listen to both sides. And you know, we are a country of laws. And the senator from the 52nd is rightly saying there is a law in place and regents ought to follow the law. On the other hand, we do have children that have been here practically their whole life that we've let go to school, and now we're saying, no, you can't go to school. I don't have the answer, but I don't even think the answer belongs to us. I think the answer belongs to the federal government, and they should be responsible to fix it. Unfortunately, they're often like we are becoming completely divided on issues. One of my frustrations right now in this body is the fact that, and I really believe this, the Democratic Party has often been concerned about the least of these. But in the case of the kids that have absolutely no choice about where they go to school, they do not have an opportunity to choose a charter, because we can't come together and pass a bill that lets them have that choice. Now, I know many of you won't disagree with my analysis there, but if you're in a bad school situation and the local board won't give you any other options, you ought to have an option. We don't need to be divided on these things. I'm going to support the bill because it's a rule of law. But I also think there's some amendments being offered, one by the senator from the 23rd and one by the senator from the 23rd, that help address some of the issue. I'd ask you to consider those amendments as they're coming up. I think and there may be other amendments that I have not seen. Mr. President, there are no questions. I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 36th. For no questions, Senator.